For Henry Thompson, it was just another late-night run, a final delivery down a stretch of forgotten highway in rural Pennsylvania. The kind of road that gets so dark, you feel like you're the only person left in the world. He'd driven this route 100 times. He knew every turn, every pothole. But tonight was different. It started with a flat tire. Annoyed, but not worried, Henry pulled over. As he stepped out, the overwhelming silence of the forest pressed in on him. That's when he saw it. This is the transcript of his call to 911. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was calm. Henry's was not. I'm on Route 7. Something is out here. Sir, can you describe what you're seeing? There was a long pause. It's tall, and it's not moving right. It's just watching me from the trees. The dispatcher tried to keep him on the line, but Henry's panic was escalating. It's coming closer. It's not an animal. Oh God, it's coming out of the woods. The last words the dispatcher heard were a strangled scream, followed by the sound of the phone clattering to the ground. Then, silence. Trooper Miller arrived on scene 12 minutes later. The scene was eerily quiet. The truck was there. The tire was indeed flat, but there was no sign of Henry Thompson. A search was conducted, but nothing was ever found. Henry Thompson vanished, leaving behind only a chilling 911 call and a question that haunts investigators to this day. What was watching him from the woods? As dawn broke over the Pennsylvania woods, the scene was no longer just a missing person case. It was a puzzle with a piece torn out. State police forensics teams descended, combing every inch of the truck and the surrounding asphalt. They found Henry's prints, the dispatcher's number on his phone, and scuff marks from where he'd knelt to check the tire. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no foreign DNA. It was as if he had simply ceased to exist. The search dogs were the first sign that something was deeply wrong. They tracked Henry's scent from his truck to the edge of the forest, and then nothing. The trail went cold, not faded, but completely gone. One handler said he'd never seen a dog so unnerved. The case fell to Detective Harding, a 20-year veteran who thought he'd seen it all. The recording became his obsession. He wasn't just listening to Henry's words, but to the spaces between them, the unnerving quiet of the woods, the sheer, primal terror in a grown man's voice. While the search parties grew, a different kind of vigil was being kept. Sarah Thompson refused to believe her husband was gone. She told Harding about the hundreds of times he'd driven that route, his meticulous nature. Henry doesn't get lost, she insisted, her voice breaking. He wouldn't just leave. For Harding, this was the hardest part, trying to give hope where there was none. Every theory that Henry had run away, that he'd met with foul play, crumbled against the facts. People who run away take their wallets. People who are attacked leave a trace. Days turned into weeks. The search officially concluded after a month. Henry Thompson was declared a ghost, a local legend born of a chilling 911 call. The case file grew thicker, with dead ends and speculative reports. But for Detective Harding, the case never closed. It lingered in the back of his mind, tethered to one unanswerable question. What did Henry Thompson see in the woods, and was it still out there watching? 6 months passed. The seasons began to turn, but for Detective Harding, time had stopped on that rainy night on Route 7. The case was officially declared cold, filed away in a cabinet, but not for him. The Thompson case file had taken over his desk and a nearby corkboard, a chaotic collage of maps, photos, and handwritten notes, all centered around the missing poster of Henry. He'd listened to the recording of Henry's 911 call over 1,000 times, knowing every panicked breath, every crackle of static. Hunched over his computer, he wasn't just looking for clues anymore. He was searching for a ghost. He was convinced the answer was hiding, not in what was said, but in the silence itself, in the spaces between the words. His obsession led him away from police procedure and into the realm of local legend. An anonymous tip, scrawled on a napkin and left on his windshield, pointed him to a name whispered in the local taverns. Silas Jones, the hermit of Hemlock Ridge. Harding found himself driving his unmarked car down a narrow, muddy lane deep in the forest, far from any main road. Sunlight struggled to pierce the dense canopy above. He finally arrived at a dilapidated cabin where a thin trail of smoke rose from a stone chimney. On the porch, a weathered man holding a wood axe watched his approach with undisguised hostility. They called him Hemlock Jones, a man who had turned his back on the world decades ago, choosing the company of trees over people. According to the note, he knew what walked in those woods. Harding cautiously introduced himself and pulled out a slightly worn photo of Henry Thompson. Silas's expression tightened, his eyes flicking from the photo to the dark woods surrounding his cabin. "He ain't the first," Silas said, his voice a low gruff. "Won't be the last." Inside the dimly lit cabin, cluttered with dried herbs, animal traps, and hand-carved wooden figures, Silas spoke of a story older than the highway, older than the town itself. Sitting at a rough-hewn table, he traced a pattern on its surface with his finger, telling of something that lived in the deepest, darkest parts of the forest. He didn't have a name for it. He just called it the Mimic or the Tall Man. He said it was territorial, that it watched. Sometimes it would take things, a dog, a deer, and sometimes, when a person was alone in the dark, it would get curious. Silas told Harding that the thing Henry heard wasn't just a sound. It was a greeting. A series of unsettling images flashed through Harding's mind as Silas spoke. A deer frozen in terror. Strange symbols carved into old trees, and a blurry glimpse of something impossibly tall moving between distant trees at twilight. Harding dismissed it as the ramblings of an old man, but the story clawed at the edges of his logic. As he drove away from the cabin with night beginning to fall, the hermit's words echoed in his mind. Just as he reached the main road, his cell phone rang. It was the audio forensics lab. He pulled over to the shoulder of the road and listened, his eyes widening with dawning horror. "Detective, you were right," the lab tech's voice crackled through the speaker. "We ran a deep spectral analysis on that background noise from the Thompson call. There's something there, buried under the engine in the rain. I'm sending you the isolated file now." Complete silence filled the car. Harding played the audio file. A sound filled the speakers, a series of low, wet, guttural clicks and a high-pitched, chittering whine. It was a sound that was organic, yet utterly alien. Harding's hand trembled as he slowly looked up from his phone, his eyes drawn to the dark, impenetrable wall of trees lining the road. It was the sound of a voice that had no right to exist. The case was no longer cold. It was staring back at him from the darkness. The sound changed everything. It was proof, not of a man or an animal, but of something else. For Detective Harding, the investigation was no longer about finding Henry Thompson. It was about confronting what found him. He did not file a report. He did not call for backup. This was off the books. He knew what the official channels would say, the psych evaluations they would order. He was stepping outside the law to hunt a shadow, armed with the only weapon he had, its own voice. He returned to the place where it all began. The air was cold and heavy, charged with a predatory stillness. This was not a crime scene anymore. It was a hunting ground. Harding placed a portable speaker on the hood of his car, aiming it towards the impenetrable wall of trees. He took a deep breath, and his finger tapped the on button of his body camera. The small red light blinked to life. Connecting his phone to the speaker, he hesitated for a single moment, then pressed play. The alien clicks and high-pitched whines cut through the night, echoing unnaturally among the trees. The sound died, and a profound, absolute silence followed. He cast his line into the abyss and waited for something to bite. But the response that came was not the sound he had played. It was a memory. The soft, muffled sound of a baby crying emerged from the darkness. A case from 12 years prior, a missing infant. A sound pulled from the depths of Harding's own nightmares. The mimic was showing him it knew who he was. It was playing with him. The baby's cry morphed, twisting into the distorted, tinny voice of a 911 dispatcher. "Dimed 911. What's your emergency?" Then it changed again, becoming Henry Thompson's terrified scream, cut short. It was a collector, and then it got personal. A perfect mimicry of Harding's own voice, whispered from the trees right behind him. "Detective." And there it was, not a creature of flesh and blood, but a living shadow, a tear in the fabric of the world. From the deepest shadows, a shape detached itself from the trunk of an ancient oak. It was tall, slender, and its limbs bent at impossible angles as it straightened. It was a silhouette of pure wrongness. Harding had found his ghost. The body camera footage became frantic as he backed away towards his car. The creature took a fluid, impossibly fast step forward, its form seeming to stretch and warp. The original clicking sound was heard again, not from the speaker, but from the figure. It was deafeningly close. The camera view suddenly pitched towards the ground, capturing a final blurry image of a pale, limb-like shape reaching down. The feed cut to static. Detective Harding was never seen again. His car was found the next morning, his file left open on the passenger seat. The only new evidence was the final corrupted recording from his body camera, a recording now filed away in a new box with a new name on the front, a box waiting for the next person who dares to listen to the silence between the trees.